Good evening. How are you all doing? Thanks for joining us. Guys, as you are coming in, if you wouldn't mind just chucking yourself on mute, want to treat this as a conversation and would love to get your contributions as we go, but it just saves dogs barking in the background and kids going crazy. We know how it is at this time of the evening. We're going to be kicking things off in a minute. Now, guys, while we're waiting, if you wouldn't mind just jumping into the chat for me and just let me know where are you dialing in from? So where are you based? And I'd love to know what kind of business you've got. And if you'd also like to share, what do you want to get out of this masterclass tonight? We're going to be working through the Clone Yourself system. This is what we call the A player magnet that allows you to attract A players into your business who own outcomes and reduce your dependency so you can focus on the things that you really enjoy doing. So if you're dialing in, guys, make sure cameras are on because I'd love to see your faces. Much easier for me to see whether you're engaged or whether you absolutely hate me. And if you wouldn't mind just jumping into the chat, let us know where you're dialing in from, what's your business, what would you like to get out of tonight? Craig, Darwin, security guards, waiting for the implementation package. We're going to drop it into the chat for you, mate. So you're going to get all of those resources shortly. Brett, if you can get those into the chat. So guys, we've put together a playbook that supports the masterclass. We're also put together a toolkit that's going to help you crunch all of the numbers around what we're talking about tonight. You'll also get a copy of the recording once we wrap up. Awesome. Fantastic. Newcastle Recruitment Agency, want to clone yourself, Mel. Fantastic. Brendan, Southwest Sydney, Stainless Steel Fab, how to clone myself, amazing. Mark, Melbourne, Electronic Security. Awesome, guys. All right, let's get this show on the road. So, guys, for most of us, we built a business from nothing, right? Like we made decisions that nobody else would make, and you've outworked everyone else around you. And it did work, right? But the reality is, for most people, you get over $1 million a year. You have a team, you have systems, and on paper that you've won, right? But the big question here is, why does it still feel like everything runs through you? Like who's got a little bit of anxiety about taking time off over Easter and obviously everything that's going on at the moment that like you just know shit's going to break. I know even for myself, my head hits the pillow at night and you go, oh shit, like what have I forgotten today that's going to bite me in the ass tomorrow, right? We've all felt it. It's a natural part of being a business owner. The challenge here is that when we've got every key decision, every client escalation, every hire, every pitch, every fire, we're not really running a business. The business is running you. So here is the ultimate question, guys. The 30-day test. We've got to ask this out aloud. Like if you disappeared for 30 days, what would actually happen? And by disappear, you're off grid, you're uncontactable, can't answer the phone, can't answer emails. What would happen? Be honest. Let me know in the chat. Like for most people, revenue would dip or potentially the business would just be a firing heap. Team would handle it. Awesome, Karen. That's great. Standards would slip. Team would wait for guidance. Momentum would stall. This is not a staffing problem. These things are an indicator of what we call structural fragility. Okay, for 30 days, 60 days is the question. Yeah, got some good leaders now. That's great. Dr. Robin, revenue would continue to grow. However, standards would drop. I hear. Brendan, my team would basically handle it, but it would suffer. Cool, great. That's good to hear. It sounds like you got some good foundations. So here's the brutal statistic, guys. Fewer than 4% of businesses between $1 and $10 million ever reach the point that the owner is genuinely optional. So that means that 96% stay stuck, not because of sales, not because of marketing, and not because of effort. It all comes down to this founder dependency. And what I want to share with you is a framework that we use that removes that founder dependency so you have more choice. And if you guys have been present on some of our previous masterclasses, we've been all talking about how do we prepare the business for exit. And the biggest challenge that we need to overcome is getting burnt out and becoming jaded or falling out of love with our business because it feels like we're carrying everything on our shoulders. The goal here is that by reducing founder dependency, and ensuring that you actually love the work that you do and you've got freedom and flexibility, that not only can you continue to run your business for longer, but your business is actually more valuable. And that's what we want to work towards. Now, before we talk about what to do, let's talk about what's already happening. Now, there are 4 signs that your business is built around you instead of around a system. And most founders at your level have at least 2. Some have all 4. Now, as I call these out, guys, if any of these resonate with you, feel free to jump into the chat. So sign number 1, you have a team, but you are the linchpin. So your people are competent, they show up, they do their jobs, but the moment something is unclear, they come to you. When a client's unhappy, they want you to step in. When a decision matters, the team waits for you to approve it. They delegate upward instead of owning the outcome. Like, imagine that your team come to you and say, hey, I've got this issue, but this is how I'm going to solve it. Is that all good? And you go, yeah, perfect. As opposed to saying, hey, Karen, hey, Deborah, what should I do? Right? And then you've got to be the hero to the story. So the problem is you stay trapped in that operational gravity, right? It just holds you down. Capable teams don't fix founder dependency. Accountable leaders do. It starts with you. Sign number 2, you're profitable, but there's never enough surplus. So revenue is strong, margins look decent, but between tax, overhead, lifestyle creep, reactive hires, the surplus disappears every year. You're building revenue, but you're not really building wealth. Because if you've got strong revenue without leverage, it's like a treadmill. The speed increases, but the destination doesn't change. And it's often because your team sees an issue and they pressure you to want to throw more people at solving those problems, right? Instead of, once again, looking within and being accountable to improving the quality of the system and the productivity that they produce as a result of their efforts. Now, sign number 3, growth feels like it requires more people, and that terrifies you, which these 2 things cascade together, right? Most founders hear the same voice. More clients means more staff. More staff means more complexity. More complexity means more stress. So you optimize instead of expand. You hesitate instead of hiring. You plateau instead of building. Now, like, we see this kind of no man's land between 1 and 3 million usually. Sometimes it gets to 5 million, where businesses get more complicated, there's far more stress, but there's less profit. And this is usually because you've got to a point of operational complexity where you need higher caliber people, but those people are going to cost you 200, 300 grand a year, right? And you just can't afford it yet. So we've got people who aren't experienced or skilled enough to take us through to that next level. So you've got to fill that gap. And it's a little bit of a chicken or egg situation. So growing with the wrong people increases stress. Growing with the right people increases freedom. And sign number 4 is you can't see how this business can run without you, right? The business that needs you to function is not an asset. It's a job with extra steps, okay? You want a business that pays you well, that builds real wealth, and one day runs without you. And right now, structurally, it's still built around you in the center. So if your business cannot run and grow without you, you haven't built an asset, it's a cage. This is just glorified self-employment. It's not a business. Because to have a business, we need to have a system. And that system needs to provide us with leverage. So hopefully we're all on the same page here, guys. Now, we've got a lot of guests here today. So Brett is going to share a resource for you guys to read through afterwards, which gives you guys a bit of a rundown of, if you're picking up what we're putting down and you like the cut of our jib, it'll tell you a little bit more around how we can help you take things to the next level and basically how we work with our clients. So Brett's going to drop a document in the chat. Make sure that you set that up in another tab and then just read that in your spare time and we can continue the conversation later. All right, so here's what most founders at your level have never been told about that cage, okay? A business that requires you to function at best sells at 2 to 3 times EBITDA. And in normal person speak, EBITDA is your normalized profitability once we take out interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. Usually most businesses are sold at a multiple of EBITDA, okay? If you're lucky, you'll get 2 to 3 times. Sometimes the offers are only 1 times, which means that if you were to sell your business, you might get 1 year of profit, 2 years or 3 years of profit in advance. Okay. Now, a business that has a functioning leadership team and documented systems, and as a result of that runs without you, can sell for 5 to 8 times EBITDA. Okay. So if your profit per annum is $2 million, that is a $4 to $10 million gap of opportunity that's sitting on the table when you exit, right? And let's face it, like I talk about this a lot in social media. As a business owner, we sacrifice a lot when it comes to our personal wealth as we're building the foundations of the business. So building your business for a profitable exit is the difference between you having a modest retirement and a really comfortable retirement. So this is imperative, not only to avoid the burnout and allow you to enjoy the work a lot more, but your financial freedom may depend on it. So this isn't about just working fewer hours. This is about what your business is worth when you are ready to leave it. Now, just out of interest, guys, who here wants to sell their business one day? Yep, cool. Awesome. Great. And even if you don't or you haven't thought about it, we did a couple of master classes. There's a copy of the recording. If you missed it, that if you don't want to see your business, you should always have it ready for sale. And because you don't want to see your business until one day you do. So the difference between a founder dependent business and a system run business is not operational, it's financial. Like it's measured in millions at the transaction table when you're building a 7 or 8 figure business. So we're going to run through this. It's not just about a better team. It's about how do we build a more valuable asset. Okay. I sold 70% this year, worked more than ever this year though. Yeah, I've heard that before, mate. I appreciate you sharing. Um, so let's talk about the solution. It's not about hiring. It's not about better job ads. It's not about another round of interviews. The solution here ultimately is identifying and solving for the root cause. We need to stop hiring helpers and we need to start recruiting leaders who own outcomes in your business. This is the fundamental issue. And I've seen so many people complaining about not being able to find good people. You've got 2 decisions that you make. You either make the decision that these good people don't exist, like they're a unicorn, okay? You can't fix that. Or you make the decision that you're just not good enough yet at attracting those people because it's just skill, okay? And I'm going to show you the end-to-end system. So let's talk about the decision gate. Before you hire anything, we need to, and before we get into the system, there's this question that most business owners skip, right? And it is where the most expensive mistake happens. And the first question is, should you even hire? Like most founders treat hiring as the default response to any business problem. Something's not working, let me hire somebody. Getting busy, hire someone. Want to grow, hire someone. It's reactive and it's very expensive. For all of you, I suspect if we looked at your P&L right now, the most significant consumption of your revenue is your wages, I suspect, right? Like for most businesses, that's anywhere from 30 to 50%, sometimes more of their top line revenue, right? So we can't make these gambles, right? Before you hire, you need to run every problem through the alternatives first. So alternative 1, system. Can a process, a workflow, or an automation solve this without adding a person? Alternative 2 is price. Can you raise prices to reduce demand and work volume instead? And interesting with this one, guys, and we're going to do another workshop on specifically pricing, given the current environment that we're in, it's going to be so important to have a good pricing strategy. We have found that across our client base, people can increase their price by 10% and afford to work with 13% less customers and make the same amount of profit. And whenever we've done a price increase ourselves or with our clients, they have never lost 13% of their customers. If they're lucky, they might lose 1 or 2%. And typically, no one leaves. And the great thing is, when we increase price, that immediately goes to the bottom line. right? No extra work, all the extra margin. Now, alternative 3 is delivery. Can you restructure how you deliver your product or service to reduce the load without adding headcount? Like this is kind of engineering principles. A good engineer should find a way to do something and continually remove steps until it breaks. Because the idea is to find the most optimal way to do something. And the issue is, as we grow and scale a business, often things get more complicated. There's more steps because no one's actually stopped to ask the question, is this the most efficient way? They've usually just accepted it as the status quo. This is just how we do things here. And then alternative 4 is people. Like only when the first 3 genuinely don't apply, do you hire. So question, guys, when was the last time that you actually went through and audited your systems, your pricing strategy, and how you actually deliver your products or services or your proven process to make sure that you're doing the most efficient way? Like, let me know in the chat. Is it something that you do on a quarterly basis? Have you done it in the last year? Or does these just sound like good ideas that you just haven't got around to yet? They're like, no judgment, right? This is a safe space. Annually, awesome. Ideas only, that's okay. Randomly, that's okay. We've been carrying a position for 3 months and it's too much. I get you. 6 monthly, awesome, cool. So as a general rule of thumb, guys, you are going to outgrow all of your systems for every time you grow 30%, okay? I would say it is worthwhile having a system at least annually to review because our goal is for our clients, they should be growing at least 30% year on year. But we need to do a spot check on these things at least once a quarter and then a big review of our overall strategy at least once a year. Now, the goal here is that the A-player magnet system only applies to roles that pass through this gate. So if the problem can be solved with a process, we don't add a person, right? If it genuinely requires a person, then we build the system. Now, for our private clients, and for some reason this is not populating, we've built a team accelerator program, which essentially runs through our stages of how we actually recruit for A players, and it must be intentional. I'll send you guys a copy of that afterwards. I'm not sure why it's broken. But this is also where the toolkit that Brett shared and the Google Sheet that we've created will take you through your founder dependency scorecard. We'll take you through the true cost of a bad hire. We'll take you through your current team profitability and utilization. We'll take you through your forecasted org chart and the cash flow. And then also, how do you create a player compensation? I'm going to run you through the principles tonight, but I'm going to give you all of the tools so you don't just have good ideas. You've got actual frameworks that you can implement into your business, okay? So let me talk you through the principles. The idea of this A-player magnet system goes through 5 stages. So first and foremost, we need to identify the right hire. And more importantly, we need to look at this holistically, and we ideally need to map out your hires for at least the next 90 days, ideally for the next 12 months. Why? When we hire one-dimensionally or transactionally, where we go, oh shit, I'm super busy. I need to hire a clinician. I need to hire an electrician. I need to hire a dentist. I need to hire a GP, whatever it might be. We are constantly playing whack-a-mole. Your hiring decisions should be rule-based, that there are 4 quadrants to your business. There's marketing, of generating leads and opportunities. There's sales, turning those leads and opportunities into paying customers. There's delivery, delivering on your promise so those clients turn into raving fans. And there's growth, doing all of those previous 3 quadrants profitably and then deciding whether you distribute profit to shareholders or reinvest it back into the top quadrant again, okay? So all of those quadrants have capacities and constraints and should have rules around when you choose to hire. So quick question. Who here knows who they need to hire in the next 90 days in their business across those 4 quadrants? Cool. Need an operations person. Cool. Because the reason why this is important to know 90 days in advance is because to find an A player, it's going to take you at least 90 days. Why? Because the best people aren't looking for a job. They're already employed. So we need to identify the right hire. We then need to define what that hire owns. Like, what are the accountabilities that they're going to be owning in your business? Because A players don't want to be micromanaged. They want to own their role. 3, we need to know exactly who you're looking for. Who they need to be, what skills they need to have, what skills can't they have, right? Like if there's things that attributes that they've got or characteristics that they've got, what are their disqualifiers? I'm going to give you some examples of this. Because we want somebody to read your ad and go through your hiring process and either go, fuck yes, this is my home. This is exactly where I want to be. This job was made for me. Or to immediately opt themselves out and say, this place is an absolute nightmare. Stage 4, screen with precision, not gut feel. I'm going to give you a rubric framework that is going to ensure that you're no longer sitting in front of somebody and go, oh, this seems like a nice person, and hire them based on the potential that you can see, because we're all guilty of that. And it needs to be systematic. And then we need to onboard for performance from day one. I'm going to show you what this looks like. So, stage 1, identifying the right fit. So most founders hire reactively. Someone quits, a client complains, you get busy, so you hire. That's not a strategy, okay? That's panic. So before you post a single job ad, you need to answer one question. Which role, when filled by the right person, generates the most leverage for my business right now? So if you need a practice manager or an operations person or another recruiter, why? And usually we need to categorize them by the urgency and impact matrix. So if we imagine 4 quadrants, the person we hire first is because we've got blocks in revenue. There's a critical replacement that we need to make. There's a compliance or a delivery bottleneck. Like, these are hires that we can't wait for, right? Like if you've got a recruitment business and you don't have a recruiter who's able to drive that recruitment pipeline, it's going to significantly cost the business revenue, right? So that is high urgency, high impact. Higher next is a growth enabler. So this is for team scaling. This is for succession planning. This usually starts after the first hire is filled. So this is usually where we see operations roles coming into play, right? So, okay, you've built out your core delivery team and you want to hire somebody who can be the operations manager or the general manager or the COO that's going to allow you to step into being the visionary and the leader, and they handle the day-to-day ops. Cool. Then pipeline build. So this is roles that you need in the next 3 to 6 months. So once again, it might still be recruiters. It might be clinicians. It might be electricians. It could be a carpenter, whoever it is in your business. We want to build a pipeline of people that you might need in the next 3 to 6 months. We build the awareness now, but we don't open the process yet. We build the pipeline because, once again, these are people who are potentially happily in employment, and at least if they know you're looking and they know that you're the perfect place for them to work, then when they're ready, then hopefully you're at the top of the list. And then defer is the low urgency, low impact. Like, these are either the speculative hires that are untested or things that are just a nice to have, right? So, quick question, guys. Where are you focusing your attention right now? Is it the high urgency, high impact, so those critical roles? Or is it something else? Yeah, first and next. Awesome. And we should do it in this order, right? Yeah, pipeline. Beautiful. Yeah, and I suspect if, like, you're in the health space, like, finding good clinicians or good doctors is really challenging. So the goal should be, we should always be hiring and building that pipeline, because your ability to grow comes down to building that pipeline of people Otherwise, you're going to hit these invisible ceilings and you're not going to be able to move forwards. So we need a process for that. Cool. So the goal here is one great hire at the right time beats 3 average hires at the wrong time. So before stage 2, identify one role in the hire first box and have one focus. And we want to nail a system for solving that so then we can try and get ahead of it. So let's talk about stage 2. So let's define what the role actually owns. So most job descriptions describe activities, right? Send reports, manage the team, handle client calls. Like an A player reads that and moves on because they're like, this is just below my pay grade. Like I'm going to be brain dead in this place, right? A players don't apply to jobs. They apply to outcomes and opportunities, okay? And so we need to position this appropriately. So when you define a role, you should build a job scorecard that has 4 key components. So one is the mission statement for the role. Why does this role exist? One sentence, the business outcome, not the tasks. Then we define the 3 core pillars. So these are 3 areas that this person owns, specific deliverables, not general duties. Then we need the KPIs or the key performance indicators, leading and lagging. So leading tells you if they're doing the right work, and lagging tells you if it is producing results. You need both. And then we need milestones. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, 365 days. We need to define what success looks like at every one of those milestones so we can hold them accountable to that. Because I'm sure you can all agree that you've probably had people in your business that you've kept around for too long because you've given them the benefit of the doubt. And the reason for that is because you didn't have objective targets that you were holding them accountable to. A players want to know what success looks like and they want to run the ball up, right? They want to meet and exceed expectations. So when we are vague in those expectations or we don't set the expectations at all, we go, yeah, it'll be all right. Just settle in and you'll get the hang of it and we'll work that out as we go. That is the absolute worst thing that you can do for an A player, right? If we don't have a scorecard, we don't hire. It's that simple. So I'm going to give you an example of what this looks like, guys, because this is a bit conceptual. So this is the scorecard for our COO. So we like to use a Venn diagram. If you want a copy of this template, we can send it to you. I've got one in Canva. But the idea is the outcome or the mission statement exists in the middle. So for our chief operating officer, their goal was to create a profitable and valuable business. Okay. The 3 core problems that they solve was stagnation, right? Operational complexity holds the business from scaling. Then that goes into the next one, which is complexity, like complex confusers and simple scales. And then that goes into the next one, which is friction. Like we've got a $25 million business with 65 team members. As you could expect, there's lots of friction. So the idea is a COO is there to remove friction, to dissolve complexity, and as a result, ensure that we are never stagnant. Make sense? So then we get into the outcomes. Well, what are the outcomes that they own? So one is operations. And the tactics of that is efficiency, performance metrics, and team development. Then we get into systems, which is technology integration, standardized processes, and ongoing improvement. And then implementation, which is project management, change management, and collaboration. It is purposely high level because this is meant to be a high level blueprint for somebody who wants to own this role and make it their own. Make sense? So if you were a high level chief operating officer and you saw this and you understood the business challenge and then the goal of where the business is heading, you'd get excited. Can you see how this is different from just a generic job description? Quick pulse check, guys. Any questions so far? If so, chuck them in the chat or take yourself off mute. Let's chat about it. If so, just feel free to jump in. No such thing as a silly question. So The great thing about this now, guys, is that you don't need to come up with this. You can use AI. We teach our clients how to use systems like Claude and train it with skills in order to use this as a thought partner, right? To use these frameworks and say, hey, I'm looking to hire a chief operating officer, or I'm looking to hire an ops manager or a practice manager. Talk me through the process. And then it'll help you refine it and build the assets. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like shortly. Richard, I have a question. If you had to operationalize a role like a clinician with this model, how would you do it? And have you done it before? Yeah, we certainly have. We work with a lot of allied health and health professionals, Richard. So the big thing that we want to get clear on, and particularly for clinicians are patient focused. Okay, so the outcome here is like the highest level of patient care, right? So it's like, okay, we want to achieve exceptional outcomes for our people that we work with. Well, what are the biggest challenges? Well, the biggest challenges are um, people being transactional in their approach to health, um, having low levels of trust of the health profession, and having not putting enough budget against prioritizing their health, something like that, right? And then we talk about the outcomes. Well, okay, patient strategy, clinical roadmap, and accountability, right? And then we get into the tactics. So the goal here is we want to demonstrate what the dream role for them looks like. And of course, it can't be bullshit. It needs to align with what the actual practice looks like in reality. But it's like, if you were an A-player clinician, what would be your dream role? Make sense? I hope that helps. Cool. All right. So stage 3 is we need to know exactly who you're looking for. Okay. Now, this is the reason why this groundwork is so important, guys, is because if you don't get this right, your job ads sound cliche. They all look the same. And what does that mean? That these people end up making decisions purely based on the salary and the remuneration. There is a leadership principle that's called Herzberg's two-factor principle. And what it states is that human beings want two things. They want significance and purpose in their role, and they want to be paid fairly. Right? The vast majority of people don't want to earn mega bucks. They would prefer to have a job that gives them a high purpose and fulfillment, as opposed to having a job that's toxic that may make a lot of money. Okay. So remuneration actually doesn't have that big of an impact in the grand scheme of things. We need to pay well, but you don't need to be the very, very top of the market. I'm going to run you through that shortly. Janie, how would you sell this to a project manager for residential house construction? I would be very much more pragmatic and objective because I suspect they're high detail, analytical, low BS. So it's like, let's talk about the operational nature. It would probably look relatively similar to the COO one that I showed you, but obviously more scoped towards project managing residential construction. So in the center, it would be something like we want uh, residential construction jobs that are profitable and on time. The issues are coordinating trades on site, cost overruns, and delays and not meeting client expectations. The 3 pillars would be estimation and project planning, resource and material allocation, and back costing and accountability. I'm throwing off the cuff here, but it would be something along those lines. Hope that helps you, Janie. So let's talk about the 8 A-player traits, okay? These are not personality preferences, guys. Like, these are observable and accessible characteristics with a track record behind them. So we want people who have had top 10% performance, right? They need to have a quantifiable record of excellence, not strong performer. We need specific numbers, guys. Because here's the thing. We talk about wanting to hire A players, but very rarely do we actually ask them for proof. Now, people don't spend their entire life being mediocre and then get out of bed one day and decide to be an A player. It doesn't happen. People have a long track history of being outperformers. So we need proof. 2 is high learning velocity. So we need people who can figure things out fast without hand holding. Okay. 3, we need extreme ownership. We want people that don't give excuses, that they fix problems beyond their job description. They're not ones that put their hand up and say, that's not my job. Because like, how soul crushing is that? Because what does it mean? If it's not their job, it ends up being your job, right? They need to have drive and ambition. They've got to be growth focused, not comfort focused. Now, once again, this is not to say these people don't want to be comfortable, right? But they want to be in an environment that they have the ability to grow. They don't want to just clock in and clock out, right? They have to have high standards. Like they're not satisfied with just good enough. They need to be coachable and self-aware. So they seek feedback. They lean into the challenge and they don't take feedback as a personal attack. Okay. They're resilient under pressure. They perform when the stakes are high and they're strategic thinkers. They can identify the root causes and they can prioritize things ruthlessly. So pulse check, guys. Like, are these the kinds of attributes that you want in your people? And be honest, what's been your success rate in attracting people that have these attributes? In a small business, once you have these people, don't they want to be owners? Great question mark. There is a philosophy that I refer to as intrapreneurs. So we want people who don't necessarily want to have the total responsibility of running their own business, but they want to be inside it and involved with it and run it as if it's their own business. So this is about positioning, right? Certainly, there's going to be some people that are going to use your business as a stepping stone to go out on their own, and all the power to them, right? So how do we make it the best possible stepping stone and ensure that the business's objectives are met and they can go on and do what they need to do? Hope that makes sense. Yeah, cool. Unicorns. Yeah, I'm going to hopefully convince you otherwise. So here are the 10 automatic disqualifiers. So if you see any of candidates that have any of these traits, the process stops immediately. So they cannot give specific quantifiable examples of past results. They blame others for failure. There's no ownership. They haven't researched your business before the interview. They're uncomfortable with change or ambiguity, and they need extensive hand-holding to function. They get defensive when they're challenged or they're not coachable. They use phrases like, it's not my job. They focus on what they'll get before what they'll contribute, and they can't articulate why they are a top performer, and they rate their own confidence below a 6 out of 10 when asked directly. So if any of these things come up, we end the process, no exceptions. Like, we can't look at these people through rose-tinted glasses. We need to stop looking at people's potential and we need to start judging them on their merit. I know it sounds a little bit ruthless, but it's the only way to grow. And the interesting thing, guys, is that when you start treating this as a non-negotiable, your energy of how you show up in these interviews, and by extension, once you then hire, say, HR people or people who handle this for you, how they show up with their energy will attract A players and repel the B and C players, okay? It's when we kind of go into these interviews, like we know we need somebody and we're like a little bit desperate, they feel it. And this becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, okay? So how do we screen? We need to screen with precision. Like most business owners run screening the same way. You look over the CV, you have a phone call, you do a meeting, you have a gut feel, you make an offer, and then that process selects people who are good at being interviewed, but not people who are good at the job. Like you got to realize when somebody's going for an interview, they are hopefully positioning themselves in their best possible light. Our job is to try and cut through the bullshit. Okay. So here's what we do. In our business, we use a tool called Video Ask. Now, if you don't want to use the technology, that's perfectly fine. You could do this on a phone call if you want to do it manually, or ask people to record a 2 to 3 minute Loom video and pick a couple of these questions, because trying to get them to remember all of them, they're inevitably going to miss them. But we use a tool called Video Ask. for a couple of reasons. One, it allows us to pre-record all of these questions. It then gives them the opportunity to record a response to each of those questions. What we then do after we get all of the responses is we download the transcript and then we put it into AI and it compares it against the job rubric that we've created. I'm going to give you an example of what that looks like shortly, okay? And what it ensures is that we have an objective assessment. Now, the reason why we also use video ask, we used to use Loom, but what we found is that people were taking the job ad, they were putting it into ChatGPT, and they were creating a script. And then you could, if they were wearing glasses, you could see them reading the script while they're recording themselves, the cheeky buggers. So we just had to adapt to the times, right? But the idea is this actually replaces your first interview, right? So we do a warm welcome video, which sets the tone. And usually I like to pre-frame by saying, hey, look, I know this probably sounds a little bit insensitive that you're not meeting with a real person right now. The reason why I'm getting you to go through this process is because I know interviews are really nerve-wracking, and I want to give you an opportunity to answer each of my questions with low pressure. And if you muck it up, you can re-record it, and I want you to put your best foot forward, right? It's going to give you the best chance of getting to the next stage, right? So they go, okay, that makes sense, right? We do a basic qualification check. So is there a certain amount of experience they need or qualifications they need? If they don't pass that, it just sends them to a thank you page and says, thanks, you don't qualify. Then motivation. Why this role? Why now? Like, I want to know that they've done their research. Like, why is this the perfect role for them? Then competency, tied to the scorecard. Like, what are your competencies? Give me examples of when you've done X, Y, and Z. Problem-solving scenarios. Give them a real challenge. Hey, you've got this scenario. How would you approach it? And then a values alignment question. Like, what does your dream job look like for you? Or where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And then logistics around salary expectations and whatnot, okay? So the goal here is that we take the transcript and we can compare them against a rubric. I'm going to give you guys an example of this. Give me one sec. I've just pulled up an option. Yeah, jump in, Robin. If it's easier, take yourself off mute. Let's chat about it,
Cool.
mate.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, too easy. So right now, like, I really feel like I'm just scaling overhead and responsibility, like you mentioned at the start of the call. And it's
Yes,
just difficult to keep the bottom line nice and full and understand that I'm in that typical phase or like, 1 to 5 million kind of range. And I just don't want to keep doing that like indefinitely. So I've
no,
decided that the next key hire I need or the next ascension I need to make in my business is a clinical director. And I just
perfect.
need someone to really own outcomes, not just be a helper, right?
Bang on.
So, clinical director being a leadership role, I think what's really important is that the team needs to decide that they're a leader before I give them the title and the badge of honor, right? So,
Yes,
my question really, given that context, is do I try and ascend someone that has no experience being a leader, even though like they're already displaying leadership qualities, but I think it's very different in reality when they look at the job description of a clinical director compared to just being a clinician. So I'm
yeah,
concerned that if I do ascend them, I do promote them, I don't want to have to train them and hold their hand through the whole process.
yeah,
And on the flip side, I'm just concerned if I do bring in a leader, someone that has experience, someone that's been out in the game, for a lot longer and has basically earned the stripes. I'm just concerned, like, about perhaps some of the blind spots I have around recruitment and
I
onboarding
get you.
strategy, like how that differs.
Yeah,
I don't know if
really
that's a
great
little bit too
question, mate.
complex and too specific
No,
to
that's
provide clarity
perfect.
to
I
everyone
see
else.
this all of the time, okay? The worst thing that you could do, Robin, is trying to promote somebody from within. And the reason for it is
Mm,
because right now, from what you've just described, is you need somebody who's been there and done that and is going to help elevate
mm,
you and the rest of the business out of this chaos, okay? And if you hire somebody from within, it's not to say that they can't work it out. It's just going to take longer and it's going to take more of your bandwidth. And if that's
mm,
not a problem that you want to have to solve personally, and if you've got bigger fish to fry, which I'm sure you do, then you're going to resent making that decision. It also
mm,
creates another complexity is that by promoting them, it now creates a clinical gap that you need to fill. So you've basically got to fill at least two roles.
mm,
So my suggestion would be, even though you don't know, you haven't hired somebody like this before, you should know what success looks like. And we can
mm,
define the characteristics. So let me give you an example. This job scorecard we're put together for a people and culture leader. I'm not going to go through everything line by line. If you guys want a copy, I'm happy to share it with you. But the goal here is the people and culture leader exists to design and run a human operating system of Aureus Financial. This role is accountable for building HR frameworks, systems, and processes that allow a 60+ person organization to recruit, perform, and comply at a high standard, and then ensuring those systems are adopted and executed across every division. Super clear, right? Then we work through what are the problems that need to be solved. No unified performance management framework across the divisions. Recruitment is reactive. Onboarding and offboarding is inconsistent. HR data needs to be actioned. No centralized accountability. Then we get clear on the outcomes. Okay, people and culture coordinator is hired, which will be a role underneath this, onboarded and operating independently within 60 days. Every team member in the business has current scored KPI framework designed by the P&C and owned by the department head. And then we go through each of the pillars, right? So it gives complete clarity. Now, this is an internal document, guys. It's got the KPIs and everything. It's got the 30, 60, 90, 180, 365-day milestones. So it's very, very clear that are they actually on track, okay? The traits of an ideal candidate. And then we've got the external job ad. So the job ad is a sales tool, okay? It needs to speak to the soul of the person. So if you run HR by waiting to be told what to do, this is not for you. So I'm trying to repel the wrong people, right? We need someone who walks into ambiguity and builds order. And so then it just goes through breaking down this. And just to give you guys a little bit of context, we've got a really great people and culture leader at the moment, but she's reactive and not strategic. So she has identified that she's not the right person for the role. So we need to hire somebody who's the next level up, right? So that's the reason why we've gone through this. Now, what we do next, and this goes through, the role is for you if, the role is not for you if. And then we go through the rubric. So the rubric is how we actually rate people in the interview. What is a 1 against systems thinking? What's a 3? What's a 5? It makes it super objective, right? We've got then the advancement thresholds. We've got the behavioral interview questions. We've got the video ask questions. We've got the onboarding plan. We've got the probation review. It basically is all of the assets we need to get somebody from coming into the business to getting to meeting and exceeding KPI. Cool? So guys, I'll get you a copy of this. For our clients, we actually give them, very comfortable sharing. We actually have a skill that we've trained our AI on that builds this custom for every single role that you want. So that's something that we only share with our clients. So guys, for our clients on the call, jump into the Teams Accelerator and you will get all of those resources. Cool. All right. So hopefully that just gives you a little bit of deeper context, guys. Let me just set my screen up again. If there's any other questions, please jump in. All right. Cool. So once again, the goal of this is when we go through interviews, it is pass or fail. With that rubric that we've got, they either need to ideally be 4 to 5, so they're a strong yes. 3 to 5 to 3.9, it's yes. 3 to 3.4, maybe put them on the waiting list. And under 3, it's a reject, okay? Once again, and this is super common, Jacinda, is none of us have been taught how to do this properly, which is the reason why we're so frustrated of not making the profit, team not being productive, not being able to find good people. When we're systematic about how we approach this, the results are just a byproduct, okay? So step 3 is then a practical assessment, guys. So we need to create some sort of case study. Usually it takes the individual 2 to 4 hours. Obviously, the more competitive the role, the more constrained you want it to be. So for example, in our accounting practice, we're hiring a senior tax advisor and the assessment took 30 minutes. You can work out whether somebody's worth their salt in 30 minutes. So once again, we come up with a framework that looks at quality of thinking, execution, role-specific skills, and communication. And we want to be able to, once again, prove that these people are not bullshitting us. Some people are great interviewers. Then, ideally, we want them to be 70 or above. If they're below 60, we reject. If they're 60 to 69, then once again, it's about making a judgment call of, am I prepared to mentor this person and are they coachable to fill that competency gap? Now, this also comes back to Robin's point that I didn't mention. You must design a role first before you try and plug people into it. The worst mistake that we can make, guys, is looking at a person in your business and trying to create a role for them. So there's nothing wrong with you creating this role for this clinical director or whatever the role title is and allowing your team internally to apply for it, but they must be assessed by the exact same rubric and same framework. Otherwise, once again, we just look at them through rose-tinted glasses and you give them the benefit of the doubt, okay? Then step 4 is the final interview with you. So in an ideal world, once you're 7 figures, 8 figures, you should have somebody who is handling this for you. So if it's an ops manager or a HR or people and culture person, but you should always do the final interviews, guys. You make the culture fit decision. So what we're looking for is business knowledge and motivation. So in my final interviews, I ask, what do you know about our business? And explain it to me. What do we do? Who do we help? If they can't articulate that like I know that they've done some research, they've watched some videos on YouTube, or they've jumped on the website and gone past at least the homepage, right? A player deep dive. Tell me, what proof have you got that demonstrates that you are an A player? Literally that blunt. But A players know. They will have practical examples that they can give you. High growth pressure test. Now, we're a high growth business. We grow 30% quarter on quarter. So basically, based on my previous example, the systems break every 90 days, right? So people have got to be used to that high growth environment and be prepared to uphold the standard. Not everyone can hack that. So if you are growing even 30% year on year, that's a lot of growth. You need to set that expectation. Don't lead people on false pretenses to think that your business is going to be sunshine and rainbows. You're better off painting the picture worse and then coming in and go, oh, wow, this is actually not that bad. Like, what were you talking about, right? Because if you go, oh, yeah, it's amazing and you're going to love it, and we start at 10 and we knock off at 3 and you have Fridays off, and that's not the case, they're going to leave. You don't do anybody any favors. And then your final confidence gut check. And my question I usually ask them is, tell me why I should pick you over all of the other candidates that I've got. And like, guys, I know this sounds like a little bit arrogant, but once again, like we want these people to prove that this is the dream job, and also it needs to feel a little bit like an audition. Okay? Because when you're hiring A players, I'm sure you've all felt being auditioned before, and you're on the back foot. And it's just not it's not the dynamics that we want to start a good relationship with a new team member with. We want to be values aligned. We want to be on the same page, and we want to know what success looks like for both of us. So a quick pulse check, guys. What have been your key takeouts so far? What's been most valuable? Let me know in the chat. Everything. I'm glad. 3 killer questions. Ask them to articulate what our business does to the best of their ability. Yeah, awesome. Fantastic. The scorecards, preparation of detailed assessment structure. Keen to figure out the Venn diagram. Yeah, and here's the other great thing, guys, and hopefully the wheels are turning. You can use these same assets with your existing team members to help them step up to the next level, okay? Because I suspect that for your people that have been with you for 1 year, 2 years, even longer, their roles have changed and the lines have got blurred. So a great exercise is to explain to them the Venn diagram and get them to do a version. Say, hey, I want you just to try and fill this in and tell me what you think your job is. What's the outcome? What are the problems? What are the pillars of what you do? The tactics on the outside. You do a version, and then you create these assets and give them clarity. And the interesting thing is every time we've done this with a team member, they've thanked us because they go, wow, I actually know my job in the business now of like where the lines are. And their performance goes up because once again, we've reset what success looks like. It's like you've got to take them through the full interview process again, but you can use the assets. Make sense? Perfect. Mark, process seems right for a senior person. Most tradie basic admin people would not be able to cope with the process. Yeah, and look, we adjusted accordingly. Obviously, it's not going to be as stringent, but the same principles apply, Mark, for a tradie, right? Because we work with a lot of tradies. I'd probably say 40% of our client base are tradespeople. And their biggest complaint is that obviously they find it hard to find good trades. They find it hard to get them to stick around. And the biggest complaints is that the people who come on board just don't align with the ethics and values of the business. They show up late, they do crappy work, they don't take pride in what they do, and it affects the reputation of the business. So it's about taking the most important things out of this process that allow you to filter for those things. Hope that makes sense. Now, this is going to be really important for everyone, is how do you create an onboarding plan for performance, not survival, okay? Here's the biggest issue. You're busy, somebody starts, on day one, they're not set up with their computer or their van or whatever, and they feel like an afterthought. How people start is sets the standard for how they perform across the duration of the relationship, okay? So we need to make sure that we onboard people the right way and we don't let them figure it out, okay? So we break this into 3 core phases. Weeks 1 to 3 is the foundation. Learn the systems, build relationships, structure activities with defined deliverables. We just want to make sure that they can do the bare essentials the way that we want to do it. So if you hang a mirror a particular way, if you do waterproofing a particular way, if you run your clinical sessions a particular way, they need to know that, okay? Don't just assume that they know and don't just assume they're going to do it your way. Phase 2, weeks 4 to 8 is acceleration. They start taking ownership for defined areas. And there should be weekly reflections and structured manager one-on-ones to make sure that they're actually on track. And then weeks 9 to 12 is full ownership. They're operating independently. KPIs are tracked against the job scorecard and they should be meeting and exceeding your expectations. What we often find is when we set this up is that most A players will end up hitting their week 12 outcomes within the first 4 to 6 weeks. I'll give you an example of this. We did this with a client of mine who runs a tiling and flooring business, and they found it really, really hard to find experienced floor installers for kind of floating floorboards and stuff like that. So we came up with the idea that we were going to hire apprentices. We're like, okay, well, these people don't know anything about flooring. So how are we going to hire people with good values? And how do we create an onboarding and training system that gets these apprentices up to the standard of a tradesperson or as close to in 12 weeks? So we mapped out the entire training schedule. We got really clear on what the values of what these young guys needed to have to bring to the table. And we had weekly outcomes that they needed to achieve. So week 1, you need to know how to tear up flooring and get everything clean and prepped, right? Week 2 was like, how do you lay the level up? Like week 3 is about how do you ensure that it's ready for the boards to go down, so on and so forth. We thought it was going to take at least 12 weeks for these guys to get good. And by week 4, I think it was week 4, they were almost the level of a fully qualified tradesperson in terms of pull up, prep, and laying down the floors. Blew our mind. And it was all because we'd invested the time in building the onboarding system. That's the power of this, guys. And the goal here as well is once we get through this, the end of the 12 weeks, we do a performance review. And there's 1 of 4 outcomes. Like the idea is that the candidate has already proven themselves 3 times. Your role is the values, the strategic fit, and the mission fit. Okay. So if they're exceeding KPIs, we accelerate. If they're on track, but they've got some specific development areas, we stay the course, we continue and we coach them. If they're below target, but they're coachable, we implement a formal improvement plan with a 30 to 60-day extension, and we extend probation. Or 4, they're not meeting expectations, there's no improvement, we act quickly and we part ways. And ideally, that should happen before the end of the 12 weeks. Like you should know. If somebody's in that fourth bucket, you're usually going to know within the first 4 to 8 weeks, right? And the goal here, if you keep the wrong person past 12 months, it actually costs you about past 6 months, it costs you 12 to 18 months in compounding damage. That's the opportunity here. So let me give you a case study, guys. So we had a client who had a professional services business, Michael, who's doing 2.8 million. He had 7 staff. He was working about 60 hours a week. Every proposal went through him. Every client relationship ran through him. So we built the scorecard before posting. We defined the outcomes, the KPIs, the milestones. We ran the video ask asynchronous screening, and we rejected 4 CVs before we even got to an interview. It saved him hours of time. We structured a compensation with $115,000 base with performance tier tied to client retention and proposal conversion and revenue generation. We ran the full 12-week onboarding framework, and by week 10, he was no longer dealing with new clients and customers, and they had full proposal authority. Over the course of 14 months, he went from 2.8 mil to 3.9 mil, and he dropped his hours from 60 hours to 38 hours a week. So this senior consultant now manages 70% of the client relationships that he was managing independently, which now means that 38 hours is driving the business forwards. It's no surprise that the business has grown. I'll give you another example. Sarah had a trade services business, 4.2 mil. They were stuck at the same number for 3 years. Like every growth model said more revenue, more staff, more chaos. And they hesitated instead of hiring. So what did? We went through the urgency impact matrix and we deferred 3 hires that she thought were urgent. We found 22% hidden capacity in the existing team through better utilization mapping. There was just wastage because of the scheduling and the diary management wasn't being handled properly. We promoted internally. So there was an internal ops leader who scored 4.2 on the rubric. We designed the role first. We took them through the process and they were the right person based on merit. And we built outcome ownership across the whole team using the KPI scorecard. So the business went from 4.2 to 6.1 mil with no extra headcount in 12 months. The profit margin went from 12 to 19%, and she took 4 weeks of uninterrupted leave for the first time in 6 years, right? Like you don't always need more people. We just need a better system for managing the people that you've already got, okay? So let's run through the details. Where you are right now. Monday starts in your inbox. 3 decisions are waiting that your team won't make without your involvement. 2 client issues have escalated. 1 hire has been sitting unresolved for 3 weeks because you haven't had the time to run the process properly. And by Wednesday, you're in operational mode. And by Friday, you're behind on the work that actually builds the business, right? It's that 80-20, right? Like if you only inverted that, the 20% of the work that you're doing right now that you know drives 80% of the outcome, we need to extract your capacity and extract your bandwidth to allow you to do it. And when you do that, then growth is just a natural consequence. So this all comes down to the value of your time. You're probably still doing $10 tasks, guys. Admin, scheduling, routine approvals, daily operational decisions. The $100 tasks, sales conversations, team reviews, proposals, process improvement. And where you should be focusing is the $1,000 tasks, like strategic partnerships, leadership development, new revenue streams, business architecture, right? Most founders at your level are spending 60, 70, or even more % of their week doing $10 and $100 tasks, right? Like every hour spent there is an hour that's not spent building an asset. So the big thing here, we need to go through the hat audit, okay? So what I want you to work through, and this is going to take a bit of time. I'll talk about it conceptually. I'd love you to spend some time, if you can, over the weekend of understanding the hats and the roles that you play in the business. Not the title, right? The actual things that you do. We need to work out every function that you perform week to week, approving invoices, managing client relationships, proposals, running team meetings, solving HR issues, making pricing decisions, right? You might find that you've got 15 things on the list. Some people have 30 or more, okay? And what I want you to do is look at each item and ask yourself 3 questions. Should I own this? So does it require my specific judgment, my relationships, or my authority? Could someone I trust own this in 90 days? This is a hire or a promotion. Or should this be deleted entirely? Like not delegated, not systematized, stopped completely. Like, does it actually add any value? And this is the leverage map, guys. Like every item that's in column 2 is your next hire or internal promotion. Every item in column 3 is a cost center masquerading as a task. And the goal here is founders who move the fastest aren't better at hiring. They're better at identifying exactly what needs to be handed over before they start the process. Okay. Because ultimately, this is what we're trying to all shift into. Like the closer you get to 8 figures, the more you need to be embodying what it means to be a CEO. All right. Going from operator to being the owner. And this is the whole premise of the A-player magnet system. Owning the vision and communicating it clearly to the leaders who then execute that vision. Driving the strategic relationships that produce the highest value growth for your business. Leading a small team of leaders, not a large team of doers, right? Like you shouldn't have any more than a maximum of 7 direct reports. The lesser, the better. Coaching your leaders to coach their own teams and protecting the culture and the standards that affect A players and keep them with you. Question: is that the role you want to be doing? Because maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree. No worries, Scotty. Good to see you. And it's also okay. Like if you still want to be doing the technical work, right? That you want to still be on the tools or consulting the clients and whatnot, it means that you need to hire somebody who's going to own these things because these are the functions that scale your business forward. And Karen, yeah, this is fundamentally what a CEO should, what a CEO should be doing because this is where we create value. The reason for it is because we're only one person. We can't be all things to all people. So these are the activities, the actions, the outcomes that allow you to work through your people, largely a leadership and management team that allows the whole business to grow as a collective. So your 5-step, 12-month build. Like this isn't instant, guys, right? Like I know that when you come to these kinds of things, you're excited, you want an immediate fix, and I'm sure that there's things that you can put into place over the next week that are going to add value in terms of your hiring process. But to do this properly, it takes a full 12 months, okay? So run the urgency and impact matrix on your current team and open roles. Identify the hire first role. Single point of focus. 2, build the job scorecard. The mission, the 3 pillars, the KPIs, the milestones, before you write the job ad. You got to get clear on what it looks like internally before we then create the sales pitch, okay? Set up your asynchronous screening, which is either get them to do a Loom video or look into something like Video Ask. And build this out the 7 questions. Set the scoring thresholds, remove the gut feel, okay? Run structured interviews with a rubric. The exact same questions, the same scoring criteria for every single candidate. And then install the 12-week onboarding framework. Weekly deliverables, manager check-ins, and performance reviews at 90 days. And the reality is, 12 months from now, if you run this plan, you have genuine leaders who own outcomes, your operational hours have dropped, your revenue has grown, and your surplus is building. It's just the natural outcome of this. So the goal then is the retention rhythm, okay? Like how do we actually keep A players? Because here's the thing. A players leave when they feel like they've got to the end of the road or they feel like they've outgrown the business, right? Like their values and what they want to achieve is no longer fulfilled by the business, okay? So how do we stop them from leaving after 18 months? The goal needs to be that we build the retention in from day one. This is the post-onboarding with them. So once people have got through this 12 weeks, you need to have a weekly pulse, 10 minutes. Same 3 questions. How are you tracking? What's blocking you? And what do you need from me? Monthly KPI review, 30 minutes, leading and lagging. Against the scorecard, no surprises. And the people should be responsible for filling in their scorecard because they're accountable to it. Then quarterly level up conversation. This isn't a performance review. It's a career conversation. Where do you want to go? What are we building together? And then a biannual stay interview. One question. What would make you leave? Because the issue is that if you're trying to convince people to stay once they've already handed in their resignation, it doesn't work. Like, the decision is already made. Our job as leaders is to try and ensure that, is the business the best vehicle that allows this individual to achieve their goals? And how do we achieve our goals together? And if it's no longer the best vehicle, then how do we wish them all the best? Or how do we upgrade the vehicle? Make sense? Quick question. Who here has, or has their managers and leaders having these types of conversations with their team? And please don't say you don't have the time. You just got to make the time. And look, once again, like, cash flow follows calendar. You just got to block it in. It evens out to about 40 minutes a month in total, right? Maybe an hour in total. Yeah. And we've got a stack of templates in the academy in our team accelerator of how to facilitate these conversations. Pre-work that we get the team to do prior to having these discussions, so they're as productive as possible. Cool. Some of you do, some of you need to work on it. Cool. Awesome. So here's the point. A players don't leave because they're paid wrong. They leave because they feel invisible, unchallenged, or stuck, right? The idea of this rhythm is it removes those reasons. Because when A players know their trajectory, when they feel seen and they're growing, they don't leave. So let's talk about compensation, because I know we're running out of time. So here's the most important part that business owners get wrong. Like, they approach senior hires the way that they approach every hire. What's the market rate? Can I afford it? What will my other staff think? A players don't benchmark against the market. They benchmark against the value that they create. Okay. So we've got to understand that value creation has three components. Component one is the base. So we want to target the mid-range to the 75th percentile. Okay. So you need to do the research, and you can use AI for this. So jump on Seek. There's lots of different benchmarks and tools online that you can see, but you want to be in the top, closer to the top 75th percentile. Okay. So that usually means across our clients, like, these roles are 80 to 130 grand, right? I think they say now that the 100 grand is the 2000s 50 grand, right? It doesn't get as far these days. So we need to make sure that we're competitive. Component two is a performance layer. So we want 2 to 3 metrics that the leader directly influences. So revenue, margin, client retention, utilization. Like, a 1% margin improvement on a $3 million business is 30 grand. So how do we build the bonus around that number? As a general rule of thumb, I work with my team around getting 25% of the value that they create. That includes their base salary, right? And then component three is the upside signal. So A players want to know that there's a ceiling that they can break through. So profit sharing, equity, trajectory, expanded authority tied to sustained performance. Now, equity is a big thing, and it's also a soft spot. So you can use either phantom equity or profit share style arrangements. Now, of course, these are for real strategic value driving roles. So if you're doing a head of ops or a COO or somebody in that kind of role, head of sales, head of marketing, these are things that there should be a profit share. There should be a stake in the outcome. Because I would prefer to give somebody 5 or 10% and for me to get 90 or 95% and for them to drive the upside, right? Be accountable to the outcomes, have unlimited upside potential. So here's a worked example, guys. General manager, base salary, 110 grand. Performance bonus, if they achieve 3 metrics, which are around profitability on jobs, team productivity and utilization, and P&L responsibility, 40 grand. So the total cost is 150. The revenue retained by an A player hire is 480. In this particular example, a value that's created. So the net contribution for this particular role is $330,000. But we need to stop looking at the cost, and we need to start looking at the value created. Make sense? So the idea is to have a scaled model, right? Because as you continue to grow and scale your business, you are going to need to pay more for higher level people. Like if we're over 5 million and 15 million, like if you're going to be hiring a COO or a divisional GM, we're talking like 180 to $280,000 a year, right? So the goal here is how do we create a performance layer that's tied to metrics that these people need to be accountable for. So EBITDA, uh, business valuation increase, things like that. Really, really important to have this. So an example of this is base salary, 220 grand, profit sharing, 60 grand. So the total cost is 280. But if that was tied to a divisional EBITDA improvement of 800 grand, that means that there's $520,000 of value created, right? Once again, get away from the scary big numbers. You've got to pay big numbers to get great people, okay? And on the flip side, the cost of bad hires is costing you more than this anyway, right? Like the true cost of a bad hire, spending 100 grand on a base doesn't cost you 100 grand. You add 20 to 35% for super, leave, overheads, onboarding time of 4 to 8 weeks, lost productivity of 6 to 12 months in misused capacity, management overhead for micromanaging them and solving issues, and then the opportunity cost for having the wrong person in the wrong seat. That is easily 2 to 300 grand in lost opportunity, right? Like as the saying goes, you buy once, cry once. The same thing goes for hiring A players. Like pay the price for high level people. So here are the mistakes, guys. You hire a salary before defining what the role must generate. Like you need to set the target first. Don't just pay the market, understand what the value is the role can create. Building comp around activity metrics, not results metrics. So hours worked is not a performance measure. Like revenue produced is. And then waiting until cash flow is comfortable for hiring for leverage. Like if you hire the right people, it creates the cash flow. So my general rule of thumb is if these are profit and revenue driving roles, if I can afford 50% of the role, I hire them, and they should pay for themselves in 90 days. I try and make sure I've got the 90 days in cash aside for it. So if it's going to be a 15 grand a month hire, okay, I've got 45 grand set aside for this. They've got 3 months to get to KPI. And if it doesn't work out, then we pull the emergency chute, right? We obviously don't want to overextend ourselves. But I know this is a nerve-wracking decision, but this is when we get stuck in this 1 to 3 mil or up to that 5 mil, that no man's land. That's the only way to get out. So now that we've gone through this, you've got more clarity on this topic than 96% of founders at this level, right? You should know now why the business is stalling. You should know now the decision gate and that your default isn't just to hire. There's other things we can do first. You know the 5 stages of the system that change it. You know what an A player looks like, what disqualifies a candidate immediately, and how to screen without gut feel. You know how to onboard for performance and not survival. And you know the retention rhythm that keeps A players long term. And you know what the system is worth at your exit table if we get all of this right. So there's basically 2 paths, guys. One, path A, you do nothing. Like you leave tonight with a clear picture, then Monday or Tuesday, because it's the public holiday, rolls around and the inbox is full. The client issues land, the team member escalates, the plan gets buried under a weight of running the business, and then 12 months from now, nothing's changed. You're still a linchpin. Maybe you're still profitable, but we're not really building wealth. We're still growing, but slower than you should, and the exit value really hasn't moved. Or path B is you install the system, right? You leave tonight with the workbook started, you get clear on that hire first role, you've run the hat audit on your own time and even do it for your team. And then you've got a 12-month roadmap that your team will understand, right? Once again, the case studies are there of how we've implemented this system and the results that have come from it. Now, Jennifer said, how do you put a dollar value on KPIs that don't directly relate to billable? So I believe that roles really are broken down to 3 things. They're either revenue or profit driving, they're service delivery, or they're overseeing revenue drivers or delivery drivers. So they're there to make sure those people hit their KPIs. So you need to define the value of those things, and wherever possible, if it doesn't relate to billable, where is the value that it creates for the business? There are certain roles, like for example, if they're an admin person, well, admin needs to be done, but it's about how do we create efficiency? How do we implement AI or other systems or tools to get the admin done more efficiently? And my thought process there is if that person can do the output of what used to take two admin people, then would I be prepared to provide them with a share of that value created? Make sense? So it's about how do you unitize the widgets that every single person does in your business. Some roles are difficult, but every single role can be unitized. Hope that makes sense. So the cost of doing nothing. Like every year you wait, your problems get worse. The options get fewer. Like later's expensive, right? The business clients that we work with who retire rich, they start out planning this stuff 3 to 5 years before they want out of the business. And the people who retire broke are the ones who figure it out later. And like really, this is the most significant contributor towards burnout in business owners at this stage of the game, guys, is just not having these people systems in place that drives you absolutely mad. So the goal here is to make sure we focus on the right next thing, right? Like everyone should have people around them that help them get focused on the next right thing. And that's what mentorship brings. Like mentorship brings two things. It brings new ideas and it brings accountability. Now, I think it's pretty safe to say, and I hope there is, that there's new ideas that are in your head right now that you wouldn't have there if you didn't make time to come to this session, right? Like imagine if you had implemented these things 12 months ago. Where would you be? And let me show you, because we have done this with thousands of clients. These are the numbers of some of our clients that we work with, of the profit that they've produced financial year to date, like $2 million in profit. This is profit, not revenue, guys, because we only deal in profit. 754% growth. 2 million in profit, 248% growth. 714,000, 24% growth. 662,000, 304% growth. You get the picture. The reason why this works and how our system is so effective is because we help our clients focus on the next right thing. It starts with mindset, and it's not woo-woo stuff, right? It's our beliefs of what's possible, and it's the quality of your ideas, okay? Next, it's the actions, what you actually do and in what order we do those actions. And that influences the outcomes, right? Your income, your happiness. If you want to change the outcome, you need to change the mindset and you need to change the action. So you need to think about how much did you earn from your business last month? Like, are you truly happy with how well your business rewards you financially at this stage of the game? The amount of effort, the energy, the blood, sweat, and tears that you pour in. And are you confident that with your current business strategy, it will get you through the silly season, right? And there's multiple silly seasons throughout the year. There's obviously the Christmas period. April is notoriously tough because of Easter and all of the public holidays. There's all of these various time periods that impact our business. It's about how do we produce an economic moat? And ultimately, the big question here is, are you on track for financial freedom? And if you're not, you need a new mindset, you need a new plan, you need accountability, you need a mentor. So you've got a choice, guys. I'm going to get Brett to share that document again of how we work with our clients so you get a bit of an idea of the lay of the land at Aureus. Hopefully you've got a ton of value from this evening. There'll be some details in there of how you might like to move forward. So if you haven't done so already, complete the scorecard. We've got our Financial Freedom Summit coming up in a couple of weeks in Sydney. So we've got Naomi Simpson, who's going to be presenting, one of the original sharks on the Australian Shark Tank. And we're going through our end-to-end framework on what we call seven-figure profits. So we're going to take you through how do we actually engineer your financial model to maximize your profits, particularly in the changing tides. We've got high inflation, we've got increasing interest rates, we've got this fuel crisis that God knows how long that's going to go on for. We want to make sure that you're optimized for that. So if you'd like to join us as our guest, the details are in that document that Brett has sent you. And of course, if you'd like to have a conversation around how we can help you implement all of these strategies, then all of the details are on there. So guys, we've got some time for questions. Feel free to take yourself off mute. If you've got any questions for me, or otherwise chuck them in the chat. Or if there are no questions, if you wouldn't mind just dropping a thanks in the chat, and then we'll wrap things up. Guys, no worries, Mark. Good to see you. Happy Easter. Enjoy the long weekend. Perfect, guys. Jennifer, let me just jump back. And Richard, I'll get you the document with the template for the job assets. We'll get that emailed out to everyone tomorrow. I'd love to improve the performance of my team. How do we monitor the decisions are being made by the team are the correct ones? If I don't approve an invoice, my team will manage it. How do I know? Yeah. So Jennifer, how I would advocate going about that is we need to get into a planning cadence. And the first thing that we try and do is we work out what is the proven process of the business, right? Like what's the value creation flywheel so everybody understands where they are, where do they fit in as the cog in the bigger machine, okay? Second thing we do is we create a scorecard. And a scorecard is that every single person in the business needs to be responsible for at least one number. Most people end up being 3 to 5. And we define a target for 12 weeks. So we do it over the quarter. And they are responsible for tracking that number every single week for the 12 weeks. Now, for the first 12 weeks, we're guessing. We don't necessarily know these are the right numbers. But what we are making a decision on is when we decide to do this. So, hey, invoices sent, meetings conducted, whatever it might be for each role. We commit to tracking it for the full 12 weeks. At the end of the 12 weeks, we review it and decide, were these the right things? Are there other things that are now more important, or do we keep them or adjust the targets? And then what we then need to do is ensure that every department in your business has a meeting cadence that is run the same way. And the idea is these things cascade together. Quarterly planning goes into our weekly scorecard tracking, into our department meetings, and that creates accountability to ensure the scorecard is done and we're dealing with our issues. So when we create this cadence, it removes the ambiguity and for you constantly feel like, oh, has that person done that? Has that person done this? I hope that makes sense. I cover that in my latest book, The 8-Figure Scale Plan. We will be doing a session on operations, the Aureus operating system, we call it. So stay tuned. We'll get some details out on that over the next month or so. Awesome, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy your long weekends, and we'll catch you soon. Take care.